Okay, now that we've done the setup, what we'll take a look at now is the three methods that we need to support inside this repository. And we'll start with the easiest one. First of all, the getUserLike. And all we need to do here is, and all of these are going to need to be async methods. And all we're going to do here is we're going to return await and context, and we're going to access our likes, and then we're going to say find async, and then all we need to do here is pass our source user ID and our liked user ID, and that's enough to go and find the individual like, because these two things make up our primary key of this particular entity. Then we'll take a look at the next incredibly simple one, which is the getUserWithLikes, where we just get the list of users that this user has liked, and that's what we're going to return from this. And we'll say return await, and we'll say context.users, and we're going to include, and we'll need to bring in Microsoft Entity Framework Core, and we need to add the async method here as well. And what we want to include here is, we'll just say x goes to x.liked users in this case, and we'll say first or default async, and we'll say x goes to x.id equal to user ID. Nice and easy. We're just really getting a user with their collection of likes, and what we're going to be doing when they add a like is we're going to be adding it to the user that we return from here. And then what we'll do is we'll take a look at the getUserLikes. Now we're taking a predicate here, so depending on which list they're looking for, we'll add some if statements and conditionals inside here to return slightly different or the other list, and we'll also take in their user ID as well, so that we can use that to compare against our user likes table. So when we go and get our user likes, we're going to go and get a list of users that that user has liked, and in that case our user ID is going to be the source user. And if we want to go the other way and find out which users have liked the currently logged in user, then the user ID is going to be on the right hand side of that table in the liked user ID, and that will give us the opposite list. So what we're going to do in here is we're going to add two queryables to help us out here. So the first one's going to say var users equals, and we'll say context.users, and we'll add an order by just so that we can get the users in username order, and we'll say u goes to u.username, and we'll specify as queryable. So we're going to be building up our queries inside here, and what we're also going to do is we're going to add var likes equals context.likes, and we're just going to say as queryable. So it looks like we're making two queries here, but we're not really. We're going to be joining these inside our query and letting Entity Framework work out the join query that's needed to be made, because what we still want to return is a list of users, but we're going to select just the properties we need in that like DTO. So let's take a look, and we'll just use if statements for the conditionals here. We'll keep it nice and simple because this can appear a bit complicated with what we're doing here. So we're going to have a predicate, and one of them is going to be called liked. This is the users that the currently logged in user has liked. And what we'll do is we'll specify that our likes is equal to likes.where, and then we're going to say like goes to like.sourceUserID equal to the user ID. I'm even making an effort here to specify what these are in our parameters here so that we can easily identify what's going on. And then what we'll do is we'll say that our users equals likes, and then we're going to select, and then we're going to specify like goes to like dot liked user. So what this gives us is our users from our likes table, and our liked user is an app user, and we're selecting that and we're passing it into our users query. And what we'll do is we'll take care of the other way. So we'll say if the predicate is equal to liked by, then we're effectively going to do something very similar. So I'm just going to be a little bit lazy, copy these two lines, but when I do this, we'll be super careful about what we're doing. We want to go the other way this time. So what we need is, instead of the source user ID, this is going to be the liked user ID, and that's going to equal our user ID. And then instead of the liked user, it's going to be the source user. And this should give us the list of users that have liked the currently logged in user. And then what we can do from this is we can return, and we'll say await, and we'll say users, and we'll project this into our new like DTO. So we'll use the select. We won't use automapper for this. We'll use just a manual select statement so that we can project directly into our like DTO. And we'll say we're selecting from our users. So I'm going to say user, and we'll say new like DTO. And inside here, what we're going to do is, first of all, get rid of the annoying errors, and I'm just going to execute the toList async down here, which should get rid of the errors, but I need to add async to this as well, and the errors go away. Now we've got a cleaner workspace to add the properties. So what I'll say is username equals user.username, and then known as equals user.known as, and then we'll specify the age, and we'll set this equal to user.date of birth, and then we'll use the calculate age extension method we created earlier on. So we'll need to bring in using API extensions, and then we'll specify the photo URL, and we'll say user.photos.first.default, and then we can say p goes to p.photo or is main, and then we can specify the URL, and then we can specify the city equal to user.city, and one more to go, the ID is equal to the user.id. Okay, so not too much typing for this particular mapping because there's not that many properties, and what we would end up doing if we were using automapper is probably typing the same amount of code to configure the mapping for this. So now that we have this in place, we can swing over to our API controller, and we'll take a look at that next.